Good morning, everybody, and welcome on into another edition of the Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 2. Today for you this morning, we got Zeitnix representing a Link to the West Coast against Kynup from Magic Lamp Oil. I'm Spy Weaver. I'm joined here by Marjevich. How we doing today?
Well, apparently it's so early our brains haven't even properly woken up yet, so it's gonna be a good one, I guess.
This is true depending on where you're at. We just went through a good old daylight savings time, lost ourselves an hour of sleep, but here we are still going at it with some Link to the Past randomizer action. Game 1 between these two teams is already concluded, as you can see based on the points on the top of your screen. Link to the West Coast took the victory in that one. That one would have been Senin over Durand. Looks like this one here is just moments from getting underway as well, so buckle up. This is going to promise to be a good one, being that it's week 1. It is, of course, your regular open 7 of 7 and defeat Ganon mode as well.
And you really do want to come out strong from this first week because, well, when we leave this week, the modes are going to get a little bit different from what people usually play. Maybe not week 2, but later down the line. So if you can end this week with 6 points, you're going to be in a pretty good position.
Precisely. You always want to get up to that early lead as fast and as strong as you can, putting your team in the best position possible to make it out of these first 7 weeks and get into those playoffs. Week 2 was, of course, going to be an Ambrosia mode. Hold that thought here. We're off already. Zeitnix starting off in Link's house with 20 rupees. Kynup in the Sanctuary with just a piece of heart.
And these are the usual openings from both our players here. Also tend to be checking Lumberjack early from both sides, so probably be getting that information soon enough.
Yeah, that being that this is open mode, of course, you don't have to do the normal old-fashioned vanilla method of rescuing Zelda, but you will see a few runners opt to go that route regardless, especially if they do get an early weapon, or a substantial weapon early on, I should say. However, we're just finding 10 arrows so far here in the Uncle drop down, and the chest just having 20 rupees, so we're not going to see that play quite yet here today.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't throw rupees at the guards and make them run away or something. You need something to actually kill them to go through with that escape, so I have to wait and see with that.
Just imagine if this was like one of the older Zelda games where you actually needed rupees to shoot your bow. That would actually be kind of interesting.
Retro is a thing in a Link to the Past randomizer. It's also a thing that not that many people like to play.
Whole slew of different ideas and things you can get into there. Kynup, though, speaking of slew of things, 300 rupees sitting in the Lost Woods mushroom spot. Up and down then for the drop down, picking up another rather useless item and moving on towards Kakariko Village.
You're not really happy with only one bomb moving into Kakariko, but you have more than enough rupees to be able to buy more bombs. And maybe you still decide to drop into the well or something and hope that you find some along the way, or just the basement maybe good enough.
Looks like Kynup's going to take that one right into Blind's hut, use it right away, and chance that we're going to find another. Meanwhile, Zeitnix killing a few mobs over there on his side, making good use of it, picking up one other bomb, so we'll have a few extra bombs heading into Kakariko. And that's a bottle in the front of Blind's hut there.
It's always great to find a bottle on your first Kakariko trip, so you don't have to return back to Sick Kid later, but yeah, no bombs for Kynup. Gonna go and take a dip into the well, or just take the safe route and go buy bombs. It is slower, but that's that risk. You're willing to take that risk?
Looks like the answers were not going to be risking it today. Kind of heading down towards the south swing around Kakariko Village here. Going to start with a sick kid and loop the way around to bind some bombs here. Sick kid just giving out little pieces of his heart today.
Now, this does mean that you could decide to skip out on checking the race game and checking the library, because you have to walk up to the library again, and it's I mean, it may not seem like a long way to walk from the well down to the library, but this early on, it is actually a bit of a distance to go.
Every little extra bit traversed in the early game, adding every little extra seconds here and there can eventually add up. We'll see what Kynup chooses to do. Zeitnix, of course, does have one more bomb at their disposal. However, we just found ourselves a bow over there in the chicken hut.
That's a more solid weapon to pick up in the early game. In terms of logic, will more likely point towards Palace of Darkness, which isn't right now, but if you want to go and do your early Eastern, haven't seen a map check yet, could just go and do that and maybe get an early crystal out of the way.
We have both of our runners dropping down into Kakariko well, finding 20 rupees. There's a moon pearl at the bottom, out of the bombable wall. The thing kind of went and grabbed those extra bombs. There's a lamp as well, and our first sword hiding down in the bottom of the well. That well is actually pretty stacked here this morning.
Do you smell Aga 1?
Yeah, smelling a little bit here.
It does stink a little, I know. I mean, you see a sword, you see a lamp, you see a moon pearl, and you don't have a glove, you don't have a hammer. Like, your mind needs to be on Aga 1 to some degree at this point.
It's definitely probably sitting in the back of both of our runners' minds here right now. Kind of does look like they did decide to go down, check the library, and they're going to, not blind check the race game, they're just going to check the race game. Library is just a piece of heart. Race game is also another piece of heart, and that's going to be a save and quit.
Well, if we're looking at the actual progression, you could just go clear Eastern right now. You can also go with just standard good old South Shore, like most people tend to do. You can do your escape, but with the current items and these things that you have that are pointing towards Aga 1, you would prefer to keep that escape on hold, so you don't have to go do escape, save and quit, and then come back later and basically go back to escape again to go do Aga 1.
Looks like, as you said here, Kynup is essentially taking that Eastern Palace starter kit right on over to that very area, at least to Sahashila's closet for starters.
And we did get to see a map check, so we have all 3 crystals in the light world with the green pendant in the Skull Woods.
Got a bottle, 20 rupees, and 20 more rupees hiding out in the back of this former elder's closet. We shall continue on over here.
Yeah, I mean, you're here. Let's just go and get the crystal. No, it's in logic and all.
That is true, and it always does feel nice to get your first crystal out of the way, sub 15 in any randomizer seed. Like I said, we got that starter kit for Eastern Palace, so let's go ahead, head off that way, and looks like Zeitnix is heading over there as well. Let's knock this place out and see if we find anything productive in here.
It is pretty interesting that the only true progression is the lamp, which then puts that bow also as progression, because beyond that they haven't really gotten anything that opens up locations right now.
That is a very good point. We've gotten a few pieces to a puzzle, but without a few other pieces, they really don't serve us too well. That moon pearl is always nice to see early on before a few other items, but by itself really doesn't do you much, except gives you access to a few water walking glitches, actually.
And I think here for Kynup, lacking a little bit of rupees there on Sora, delaying it a little bit longer, maybe increasing the possibility of having those 500 before Sora is a pretty good choice on that part.
And Zora's another one of those locations where if you make that trip up there, you'll want to make sure you can at the very least pay the big fish on your first trip. Not usually one of those that's fun to make a second trip to. Look at that though, third chest we're opening up. That is our flute for today.
It's always so interesting to see these items that you have in the early game that give progression, that give new locations you can check. But then you look at it and it's just, oh, the flute opens up 3 locations. That's not a lot, but it's still a flute, and you're not saying no to the flute.
It gives you ease of movement. You think it opens up quite a bit, but standalone, like you said, by itself only opens up about 3 locations, and just kind of makes you ponder there for a little bit, like, oh, well, where else am I supposed to go right now? Because that probably isn't one of the most dense locations that I want to go to at this point.
You could take the flute just immediately up to the mountain, get the locations checked, but maybe you want to try and wait for a mirror or a hook shot or something and just open up the entire mountain.
Alright, in the vanilla, big key location, kind of finding our last item of Eastern Palace. So all we're gonna leave out of here with is a blue boomerang. I'll let you determine how you feel about that one, and then of course the flute, which could play a major role for getting us access into some dungeons later on in the seed.
Yeah, most things in the early game is generally trying to find that Dark World access and hoping that it isn't Aga 1 that you have to do, and then you get to the Dark World and then you can kind of try and figure it out. Because how many options do you really have in the Light World early on? It's basically try and get rupees and bombs for Kakariko, you get an item or 2, and then you see where that takes you, and sometimes you get a bow when you can do this, and sometimes you get a flute or a glove and you can go up the mountain. But it's not really until you get to the Dark World where things start to open up and you start to get some options.
Yep, and that is a very good point. You do need to get yourself into that Dark World to pretty much do any real damage in the seed. But look at this, Kynup already into Armos Knights and already done with Armos Knights. That was some quick work. 11 minutes, 16 seconds in, and Kynup has already drawn first blood in this seed today.
As the early Eastern gives a very early crystal, and it is one of the 5-6, so we'll have to keep that in mind when we figure out which is the other 5-6 in the Dark World.
Depending on what that other one is, it just gives us a few more checks that we could potentially route in. I want to make our way over to the pyramid. But like you said, we have to hold out the jury on that one to see where that other crystal is. And it looks like Kynup is going to go right back into Kakariko and activate that flute already. Zeitnix, however, right down into Armos Knights, making quick work of their Armos Knights fight as well. A few seconds here after Kynup, Zeitnix ends up drawing their first blood and grabbing their first crystal of the seed.
Yeah, the only real difference now is that Zeitnix didn't take that uncle opening and has those 2 locations there checked. Besides that, we have basically identical seeds. You go activate the flute because fluting is faster than walking. It makes a lot of sense regardless of where you want to go.
Alright, so at this location now, the early flute, are we going up the mountain or are we going down the south shore? It looks like Kynup is going to start us down on the south shore area.
Yeah, it's a quick flute for 2 items, and then can head on over to the Moldorm Cave, and if you don't then want to continue with the Ice Rod Cave and your fake flipper stuff, you can do that. But since you have the flute, you can just skip Ice Rod Cave for now and go back to it later. You don't have to force the Ice Rod Cave that you otherwise have to do after meeting Moldorm, since the flute just takes you back there, no problem.
Yep, in instances where you do get that flute early on, it does kind of make it feel a little bit nicer, or not as painful, I should say, leaving that Ice Rod Cave behind. Of course, you can whip out that flute right to spot number 8, and you're just a few screen transitions away. Zeitnix giving us an audible flute activation over there on their side. We'll see where they decide to take that Albatross air flight to.
Yeah, this is pretty basic early game routing. You get the flute, you haven't checked South Shore, let's go South Shore. It takes 2 seconds to go there or something.
Yep, a whole slew of items, a big item-dense location, should say here. Kynup finding ourselves a shovel and another hoard of 300 rupees. We're just finding all the rupees here early on.
Yeah, rupees are not going to be an issue here. So Kynup could go straight, just get that shovel location checked, but seems to want to delay that a little bit longer.
Pulls out the food ups, go right up the mountain. Looks like we're going to be rescuing the old man. Kind of side, at the very least, this will open us up as a another save and quit location as well, just in case we do want to come back up this mountain later on.
It's a very nice save and quit to have, because it's so fast to get out of the cave, and then you flute away and you can talk to the old man, get your full health refill as well.
Old man giving us a tip of 20 rupees for escorting him out of the cave today. I'm just going to continue the climb up the mountain. We're going to get a look at the top of Spectacle Rock here and then see what else we have hiding on the inside. Sitting on top for us today is just a single rupee. Inside hiding over here is just a piece of heart, so nothing leading towards any sort of progression over here for us today.
And we're already running out of locations. Typical early game where you don't get a lot of items to work with. Shovel, Agena, Escape is basically it after this Ice Rod Cave has been checked.
It does not look like Ice Rod Cave is housing the item we are looking for. That is 50 rupees. Try again. Kynup, however, is going to take this shovel over to the dig spot. We're going to get a look here. That is a glove. That's another one of the pieces of the puzzle that we're looking for here.
So there is a little interesting thing about early flute and glove, and that is that because of how efficient the flute is to get around the world, you want to flute as much as possible, but you can't flute to Sanctuary to check the back of Escape, which is why you need that save and quit, which sometimes can be a bit awkward to fit into your route because you just want to continue to flute all the time.
Zeitnix taking those fake flippers, giving us a look at Lake Hylia Island. I believe that was a fire rod that we have sitting over there.
Yeah, I believe so as well. It was definitely a rod.
A rod of some sort. We'll have to wait till we get a Dark World map check to see if that would be required, but odds are on that it most likely will be.
Well, you got a key here in the back, so you can just take this key and go and check Dark Cross. You have the lamp, all of this is in logic.
Alright, took us about 18 minutes here, but we're finally getting a little bit of deviation. Zeitnix going up towards the Zora area, Kynup checking out the back of Escape. That bit just getting us the map. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that means we probably have 3 items sitting up in the front of it.
Yep, that is true. Well, there's that Master Sword, and if you weren't smelling the Aga before, you are definitely smelling it now.
Uh-oh.
That is a sequence break, so we don't know yet if that is, well, where the flippers are.
Yep, at the very least, you can take solace in knowing that that was a little bit of a sequence break. Oof. And that's a red cane sitting on Zora's ledge over there. We have all the turtle rock pointing items sitting on ledges today so far, it looks like.
It is a lot of nice information to have available to you.
It would almost be an oof here if Zora gave us some vanilla flippers. But today, just a full heart. So we can still take solace in knowing that as far as we know it for this point, that Master Sword is a sequence break, so it's not quite yet the Dark World Axis answer you're looking for.
Yeah, well, we have Escape and we have a Gina left, I believe.
I believe you are correct. Kynup is going to give us a look here at the front of Escape. Zeitnix looks like they're heading over to that dig spot. They're about to grab their first glove of the seed. And chest number 1 in Escape, just 5 rupees. The options are ever dwindling at this point.
Yeah, well, there's only 3 spots left. There was an option earlier for Zeitnix to go for a splash deletion. Not everyone is super proficient with a lot of the setups necessary for that glitch. It's still somewhat new and somewhat uncommon to find situations where it's useful.
Zeitnix opting to head into the front of Escape as well. Kind of still giving us a look down there, finding us a piece of heart. One more chest left on down here in Zelda's cell. I believe we're down to 2 chests left to open before we get the answer of where we need to go.
I mean, that is the big question. Which item is it? It could just be a sword, it could be flippers, it could be a hammer, the other glove. Like, there's a lot of different possibilities here. Preferably something that lets them skip Aga 1.
And there it is. That is our Titan's Mitts hiding right down in Zelda's cell. That is the last piece of that puzzle that we are looking for.
Now, Aga 1 is not completely dead at this point. There is a very slim, I want to use the word risk, that this could still be Aga 1 because of some Pyramid Fairy shenanigans and also the intended access to the right side of the Dark World. But players need to sequence break that by using a bomb.
That is definitely a very good point. Even though we do have that Dark World access, it is Western Dark World access, specifically the Village of Outcasts area for now. Without that hammer, logically, you really can't get yourself to the east side. Unless, of course, you do use yourself a bomb jump. But, of course, that is breaking a whole bunch of logic there.
Yeah, but it's for a good cause. We get to skip Aga 1. That's always a good cause.
That's at least a very good cause in my book.
So we had the early bow in Kakariko, Lumberjack being 3 bombs, so it's dead. We have this rod here that Kynup's gonna check. That does very much look like the fire rod to me.
And Zeitnix dropping down into the back of Escape as well. No better time to check this out than when you do save and quit, of course, because there's no other time that you are closer to this location. picking things up. They did do their item count right. Looks like they did. They do realize the map is in Dark Cross. So let's save and quit and get on out of here.
And that's a nice little time save compared to Kynup, who ended up going to the Dark Cross.
Alright, as Kynup is getting their full heart container from Zora, Zeitnix about to step foot in the Dark World. I'd imagine we'll get ourselves our first Dark World map check here very, very shortly.
That's a very nice fake flipper here from Kynup, being able to pick up this cane. Does not have to go back later.
Yeah, looks like other 5-6 crystals, Thieves Town, Green Pendant, Skull Woods. We also have a pendant in Swamp Palace and Ice Palace. This looks to be a seed where you want those flippers to hide for as long as possible.
Yeah, you really, really don't want to see flippers. And the thing is, then you need the flippers to get the fire rod, but Skull Woods is a pendant as well. So you still probably need the fire rod for Turtle Rock, unless very specific item layout allows you to skip that. But at some point, you probably will end up getting those flippers, hopefully as late as possible. Yeah, I guess you need a fire rod for Trinex. One day we'll find a way to skip Trinex. One day.
Fake fire rod by using the ice rod on Trinex.
Ah, yes.
Somebody someday is gonna find something like that that'll end up working.
I mean, you can use things like sword beams to get the double fire rod shots on Colster and things like that if you are lacking magic. But you still need to have the fire rod in order to do that.
Okay, first chest that Zeitnix opens up, the big key. That is going to come in handy when checking the rest of the front of Skullwoods here. Kynup gave us a look at Agena. Just ended up being a pack of 3 bombs.
Yeah, not very useful. I'm definitely seeing the players being very thorough before they enter this Dark World, because it is Dark World, but it's still somewhat limited. No hammer, no east side access. They can't do much up on Death Mountain. I'm a little surprised to not see the Mire area be checked before opting for this, because that tends to be very common because you really want to find the hammer.
And a no key in hand, Zeitnix hopping into the pinball room. Change here with our current version 31. This room isn't assured to give you a small key, but today, in fact, it does. Opting to save that small key and take a death warp back to the front is Zeitnix.
And Kynup was close to dying earlier and took out the boomerang in the overworld to make sure that could go in, get that chest, and then set up the death warp back to the entrance.
To the front of Skullwoods, coming up Snake Eyes, not finding anything there. I believe that means we have both of our items hiding out in the back. Kynup, getting grabbed by the Wallmaster there after grabbing a key. Looks like that was a little bit more planned, however.
Yeah, that was a bit different from Kynup going over there to get that small key and have that for the front. Just to help a little bit with the routing here in the front of Skullwoods.
Zeitnix dropping down into the brewery, just finding 50 rupees hiding out in the chest in there. Still really not finding anything yet in this dark world that would point us towards another dungeon. Kynup needing to be careful here. Onto 1 heart.
Well, Thieves Town is the other 5-6, but you don't have access to the Pyramid Ferry with their current equipment. You can't get to the ferry right now. You can't even get to it via AGA 1 logically or anything like that. Like, it's just simply put not possible to go there. And you, like, it's still Thieves Town, like, you can go in, clear it, but you also don't have the hammer, so this is a really awkward Thieves Town.
Yeah, without that hammer, you always run the risk of leaving an item in that big chest. Also, as well, depending on the key layout, for logic reasons, they could always end up with what they call a hammer-locked Thieves Town. But that really doesn't do anything other than just let you know logically where the dungeon should sit.
In situations like this, you could just go for the full clear and hope that you don't have to worry about the hammer, or just take the first 4 checks, take the death warp to the entrance, and then try and go somewhere else. Like, you can take those boots and to, I don't know, check some bonk locations if you want to.
Well, that is a very friendly front of Thieves Town. That was, I believe, 3 items that we've already picked up out of the 4 in the dungeon. So odds are almost kind of in your favor here that there's not going to be anything of substance inside that big chest. Looks like Zeitnix is choosing as well to continue on in the dungeon.
Yeah, with 3 items, you can just as well go. And if there is something there, well, that stinks, but just the kind of place that you have to make sometimes when playing the randomizer.
Not quite getting the initial God Pixel, but finding another spot to take a dash from and making it through that hellway without too much trouble. On into the attic. We got another check up here. This is a bombable floor that we got to open up here to let some light on down into the bottom. Attic just the map today, so we continue on.
And if we're looking where they will go next, probably just continue the Dark World route down to Hype Cave. It is the question of whether or not you do bring the Smith with you. It is a long walk without the mirror. So some players will opt to skip it, some players will opt not to. Then there's always that question, where do you go after the Hype Cave? Do you flew to the Mire Shot area? Do you check these bonk locations?
Oof. Zeitnix getting sniped there on their way to the back, and that never feels good. At the very least, though, it is Thieves Town. It is a very quick dungeon to get back to where you need to go. So there's at least got that one working for them.
It is a time loss, and any time loss is a time loss. And when you do take deaths, you may get into a mentality where you have to take an additional risk or two in terms of your routing or in terms of your execution at some point. Try and make up for that. Problem is, this isn't really a seed where you can make any risks in terms of routing because it's pretty linear. It's a mixed Dark World seed where you don't have access to the pod area. Like, you don't have many options. Which is funny because I talked earlier about, oh, you get to the Dark World, you get options, but because of the items they have, they just don't have options.
They are few and far between at this point. It's a matter of essentially needing to clear what you can clear right now. Zeitnix opting to use their red potion there, as they are already back down to 2 hearts, making their way through the hellway. Definitely a good choice, not wanting to take a second death here at this point.
And small key is locked inside itself. It's a funny sentence.
So all that technically does, as I was kind of stating earlier, is let us know that this dungeon, in a sense, is technically considered hammer-locked, being that key logic takes into account essentially worst possible key usage.
Yes.
That's just really going to help us as far as trying to determine where that hammer is, but that's about all that'll help us with.
Yeah, that means that the hammer cannot be a pyramid fairy, which is very important because it means that you don't have to do AGA 1 to get logical access to the pyramid fairy.
And there it is. Zeitnix making quick work of blind, keeping it perfectly on script, nicely executed. Getting some rupees for the trouble, and more importantly, crystal number 2 of the day, and that is the other 5/6 crystal. I'll have to keep that in mind for now.
It's been a long time since I've seen crystals 1 and 2 be the 5/6. And then you still can't do pyramid fairy because of the items that you have.
Here's a couple crystals for you. You can access another location with it, but never mind, you actually really can't because we don't want to give you access to said location quite yet. Alright, Kynup into their blind fight. Making good work of keeping blind on script here. Getting a little bit off here on the third phase, but no troubles. Speaking of hammer, Zeitnix finding it hiding over there in our dig game.
Now you do have some interesting choices that you can do. Now you have access to the entire east side. You can go do pod. You can get that out of the way. You can do the smith a little bit more effective because you can do the hammer pegs alongside it.
And that is more likely a big sigh of relief here for our runners. Kynup about to grab that hammer as well, very momentarily. There's access to a lot more locations, a lot more checks. Just kind of open things up here a little bit. Hammer Pegs is having a full heart container. Zeitnix opting to pick that up today.
11 hearts is pretty healthy. And then you realize it's only green mail, and enemies do damage in this game.
Zeitnix looks like they are opting to take our Smith friend for a little bit of a world tour here. We'll start off over onto Stumpy, which is just a piece of heart today. And then we'll continue on.
And since Zeitnix went and picked up the Smith after getting the hammer, it is unlikely that we're gonna see this Smith get exchanged over at the pod area. You can go all the way over to Catfish if you want to.
That is true. You can make a wide sweeping look through some of those other overworld checks on the east side. We're starting off with Hype Cave, just a red boomerang and some junk items to show for it. Zeitnix is choosing to opting to save and quit from right there.
So you could decide to delay Pyramid Catfish until you can get that Pyramid Fairy down, so you don't need to go back to the Pyramid again. But there is the issue of if you're ever planning on doing Catfish. Maybe you're not planning on doing that, but if you are, how do you route that in? A current jump after you get a mirror, and then you can mirror over and get your cane?
And Catfish is just one of those locations. It's kind of a bit out of the way, and honestly, whenever you usually do it, it never really feels good, given how far out of that way you have to go. Turning in the Smith today, though, giving us some magic powder. That's kind of handy. We can just go jump down this hole right here and see what that fetch quest is going to give us today.
Let's go get it out of the way. You know, we are seeing Kynup actually continuing here.
Yeah, but just 5 rupees from the magic bat today. Not any progression of any sorts. However, probably more importantly, that powder giving us a nice little bit of a safety for later on here.
I think something that is important to state is that you don't need to check every single location in the world. Preferably you don't want to, because you just want to check the locations where the items are, but you can't always be that beneficial. And if you spend, like, say, a minute going to check Catfish, and Catfish doesn't have anything, and then your opponent decides not to go there, well, that's a minute down the drain from your opponent. And that's why these locations can be very difficult to get in. So you either have to basically decide, will I check this location? How do I do it the most effectively in that case? Or am I just going to ignore it and say, if there is something there, well, I'm screwed. But I'm just going to decide, no, I don't want to go there. And another thing also here for Kynup is that Kynup did do the Ancilla Fake Flipper to get the cane. So Kynup doesn't need to care about the Sora area. Zeitnix knows that I need to go back there at some point and get that cane. I don't know when, but I have to. And therefore delaying the Catfish for when you have the mirror is more beneficial than what it is for Kynup.
Yeah, at the very least, though, here for Kynup knocking out Catfish, it's just another check off the map. One less thing to think about later on. Catfish, though, unfortunately, only giving us 20 rupees. So not really what we wanted to see out of that one here.
So yes, that's a clarification for those who just joined. The Cane of Samaria is on the Sora Ledge. And the Fire Rod is on the Lake Hylia Island.
And the cape is apparently in the purple chest. That'll give us a little bit of access over into Bumper Ledge if we want to take a peek at that here at some point.
Yeah, but that is one of those awkward locations now, actually, because they've been to Skull Woods, and if you want to do Bumper Cave, you kind of want to combine it with Mirror for Graveyard Ledge and then head on over to the Catfish area. But they don't have the Mirror, so that location is just kind of there, because neither of them, I think, actually checked it after doing Skull Woods.
I believe you're correct there. It's just kind of hiding out. And hell, of course, we do get that mirror. Zeitnix opting to take these early 5-6 crystals and cash them in. For the big bomb, we're going to get ourselves a Pyramid Fairy check over here now.
Yeah, this is the logic being followed here. You got your 5-6. The hammer put this in logic. The hammer is the most recent item. These enemies are awful, but you get through them.
Dodge some tridents. Start the countdown. On into the Pyramid Fairy we go. And today that gets us a Tempered Sword. The fairy itself will give us a bee in a bottle and a full heart container. That's our Sank Heart hiding out in Pyramid Fairy.
I mean, you're not saying no to a sword, but you were kind of expecting something a little bit more good. Let's be honest. Something progression-like, but Zeitnix can easily route in this with the pod now.
Yeah, that Master Sword to Tempered Sword jump. Probably one of the more significant damage gap jumps in the game, especially when we're talking about sword upgrades. Keep in mind, too, as well now, Zeitnix is on Tempered Sword. Kynup still just on Fighter's Sword, though. Hasn't really sequence broken up into Waterfall Fairy to grab one sword hiding up there. and still hasn't yet opted, I should say, for that Pyramid Fairy to grab the other sword that we have found.
Yeah, and Kynup may never go back and do that because, well, when are you gonna go and do that? Like, when you get your Fire Rod or something? Because you've been there and you sequence broke the cane already. And if flippers are your go mode, as to speak, so you can go get Fire Rod on the island, are you gonna check those two locations? Probably not.
That's a very good point. It'll be interesting to see where our fourth sword is hiding out today. Hopefully, somewhere along the way, Kynup will find one of these swords, give them their master sword so they can actually, at the very least, damage our big pig later on.
Yes, you will need at least a master sword to be able to do spins to hit cannon. We are missing one sword here.
Zeitnix getting that God Pixel through the hellway. Kynup also getting through there without too much issue. We continue on in pod, not finding too much for items just yet. Finding quite a few keys.
It's pod, you know, pod and keys. And pod is one of those dungeons that have a very specific key layout because of certain events in the past that led to seeds getting soft locked in key sanity because of the key logic.
So far, proving to be all business up front. Kynup actually opting to go right to the back here. Not a bad decision. You have to clear pod out anyways. And if Helmasaur King is holding on to one of the items, that's just one less check that you potentially have to make later on in the dungeon while you're going through and clearing out the rest of your checks.
Yeah, and I do believe this is actually faster to get through pod if the big key and everything presents itself in the way that it did today. And you don't have a mirror, so you can't just get easily back to the entrance.
With that early key layout there, dare I say it's probably as close to a God mode pod as we're probably going to see.
Unfortunately, it is pretty rare to get the go mode pod.
Alright, as Zeitnix continues on with those checks, Kynup making their way on into the Helmasaur King. 17 hits to the face with this hammer to knock that face mask off. And you got yourself a few options of what to do after that. Let's see how we do here. Zeitnix still finding some keys. Found a full heart container down on the bottom. Down goes the face mask on Kynup's side. Opting to pull out the bow and arrows. Helmasaur King playing very nice right there. And down he goes. That is going to be crystal number 3 for Kynup and a piece of heart. That's one of the items. But look at that. Over on Zeitnix's side, we just found the silvers. That is going to make Helmasaur King a lot faster.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice time save. You will also have 2 additional swords. Could also just have gone for regular sword straps, but no need to do that. But Kynup is obviously going to go back in. You're still looking for a lot of items. To finish off the seed, we'll get the silvers, but there wasn't anything else in here.
other items really to speak of. The silvers, and then our first shield, not necessarily really needed, but it's linked to the past. I mean, you're required to carry a shield at one point or another, aren't you?
It depends on who you ask. I don't know how the rando lore works for shields. We really have to ask ourselves, like, what is the next piece of progression here? Because it's not Pod, it's not the Smith, it could be Purple Chest, it could be Bumper Cave, the Spy Cave. Like, none of them sound very appealing.
Oh, we do have that hammer, but we don't have the mirror, so we really can't get anywhere up the mountain yet either.
They still haven't been to the Mire area yet.
It's true. We got those few in the Mire area, but then other than that, once again, we are fast running out of locations here. Something's going to have to give, and give soon.
I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen the Mire area, since this was Myth's Dark World with Flute. Because you tend to see that as the very first check you check, but they don't want to go there for some reason. It could be the whole Cane thing with the logic, and the fact that they don't have any medallions, but even then it's a pretty quick check for 2 items to get the information.
And to that point, sometimes information is king in a game like this. Knowing where that fire rod is, for example, knowing where that red cane was sitting. Kynup, of course, though, did do some Ancilla deletion to grab it early on. So that is one little bit of a time saver advantage they are going to have over Zeitnix here when we do get to collecting items for our Turtle Rock adventure.
The entire mountain area. The entire mountain area adventure. Like, they don't have hookshot or mirror to do things up there, but once they get one of those items, you bet they're going there pretty soon.
Yep, that is for sure. Still a whole lot of items just kind of hiding up there on Death Mountain, both Light World and Dark World. And yes, we are 50 minutes in and haven't really been able to even look at the mountain. And right there, that was a nice Helmosaur King fight for Zeitnix. We have even this thing back up 3 crystals to 3 crystals.
Well, this is a sink, save and quit if I've ever seen one. Okay, where are we going now? Is it time for the Mire area? It looks like it is time for the Mire area.
There is your Mire area. Zeitnix going over to check King's Tomb first. We did get this check over on Kynup side a little earlier. Just going to be 10 arrows. Mire today looks to be Quake.
Well, we don't have any medallion information, so we're just gonna have to wait. Never mind. Maybe we should have gone to the Mire area earlier. Well, you have boots. Kynup can just go in here with the cane and just get it done, but apparently seems to want to do something else for now. There's a sequence break to beat it with the cane.
Probably thought about that for a little bit, thinking that it is in fact a sequence break, because we did break to grab that cane. You do need the cane to finish out Misery Mire. Probably not wanting to go too much farther down that sequence broken rabbit hole. Almost thinking at this point, the next item we're probably going to find is going to end up being our flippers, unfortunately.
Seems like Kynup maybe wanted to set up some potions, maybe, for Mire. But then realized, oh, I have a red and a green, that's pretty good, because Kynup still only has regular fighters. Fighting. Blah, 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 blah. A terrible sword. It's,
you
kind of want to have something better, but Kynup is going to go ahead for Desert first.
A much safer play. Desert as well being a another one of our crystals today. Since we did just grab that book in the Mire Shed area, may as well just go ahead and knock this out. Hopefully for Kynup's sake, find yourself a sword in this location. But as we know, odds are kind of dwindling on that one, since we've already found two of the other ones on Zeitnix's side.
Yeah, Zeitnix needs to go and get this book and Quake Medallion.
That looks to be where they are heading, over to the Mire Shed area. Taking a quick peek. Didn't quite get high enough there. Going back around, seeing that it is Quake on their side. Kind of continuing on. There looks to be a big key sitting on top of our torch in Desert today.
The interesting thing is that they could have gone here earlier and gotten Book and Quake, but would either of them really have gone into Mire? I mean, they're not going into Mire now, so they probably wouldn't have done it like 20 minutes ago anyway. And the book only opens up Desert. They don't have the mirror to access either tablet right now.
That is a very good point. Looks like we did have just a full heart container, I should say, on top of that torch. Missed the big key a little early on. One more item, I believe, if my counts are correct, we have hiding on Landmolis for us today.
You are correct. It is very understandable for Zeitnix to not go in, because you know where the cane is. You know you can't clear the dungeon, but you know you get flippers, you can't clear the dungeon. So you don't really want to go in there right now. For Kynup, it's probably the sword, honestly. It's probably sitting on Fighter's sword that is making this, and maybe hoping to get something else in Desert.
And for all intents and purposes, I don't really think you can blame Kynup for that one. Fighter's Sword Misery Mire is definitely not one of the more fun things to attempt to accomplish.
Yeah, you have Fighter Sword, you do have Silvers, but you have no Rod. Like, these first few rooms can be pretty rough to get through. Like, Silver's no problem with the boss, it's a matter of getting there, that's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Alright, as Kynup pulls out the torch, lights the 4 torches sitting there, jumping on in to their Landmolis fight, pulling out some silvers. Should see a quick, just missing the last one, getting it with a second hit there though. That's a nice one cycle for Kynup, grabbing their 4th crystal of the day. However, that was unfortunately only a piece of heart sitting on the boss.
Well, are we going into Mire? Or are we doing Spy Cave or Purple Chest or Bumper Cave? None of which feel very nice. No, I don't know, like, it does seem like we're going to Mire.
This seed is definitely being stingy for both of our runners here. The only advantage here to jumping into Mire at this point that Kynup will have over Zeitnix is the fact that they do in fact have that red cane, so if they do want to get adventurous, they can clear the whole dungeon. First they gotta take care of that murder dackle that is not playing nice at all.
This seed is very much on rails. You go somewhere, you get one item, and then you get another item somewhere else, and then you just keep on doing like that.
For those of us just joining us here, about an hour into this seed, this is week 1 of the Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 2. We got a pretty tight one here. Everything is pretty much just pointing us towards one item and one further location. It's fairly linear at this point. Still at this right now, I'd say looking for our flippers. We have ourselves a fire rod sitting on Lake Hylia Island. We had the cane of Samaria sitting on Zora Ledge, also behind those flippers. But unfortunately, the other bad side, so when you do find those flippers, that'll get you access at least into a couple other pendant dungeons. Still missing a few items to be able to clear them, though, and thankfully at this point. So that could probably be the one saving grace. Also missing out on our mirror or hook shot to be able to access the rest of the Death Mountain. We're going to get an hour in here, not even seeing more than 2 or 3 checks on top of Death Mountain at all.
This is really the catch-22 flippers if I've ever seen one. It's like, you want them, you need them, but you don't want them too early. The hook shot you very much take, because now we can go do stuff on Death Mountain! Yay! It only took 59 minutes.
Yep, just as I was saying it. That is probably a more welcome sight than the flippers would have been at this point. That's the hook shot. That'll get us up Death Mountain. We can finally go ahead and take a look at everything else up there. And, you know, with that hammer in hand as well, we can actually go clear Tower of Hera. Speaking of clearing things, Zeitnix making quick work of their landless fight. That is back to a 4 crystal spread here.
This does seem to be a seed where you do have to double dip Mire logically, because this hook shot is probably locking the flippers at this point for the cane, so Kynup in a very solid position here. Doesn't have to make that double trip. Unless the flippers are also in here, because they could be.
That is true. It probably wouldn't be the first time that we've seen that one. But like I said, Kynup has the advantage, once again, of having that cane of Samaria. Does not need to double dip. Well, unfortunately, Zeitnix saving and quitting.
That's like, that's really confusing, honestly. You go there and you open it and then you leave. Like, you just decided to change your mind at the very last second before going in. It's probably the cane that is spooking here. Like, you don't want to go there because you know where the cane is and you don't want to double dip, and you're gonna end up checking these locations that are very much out of the way, like Bumper Cave. This is a long walk to take, even with boots.
If I believe you're right, it's the knowledge of that cane location that's keeping Zeitnix out of Misery Mire. Unfortunately, right now we do know that the hookshot is hiding in there. That's just a shield upgrade sitting on top of Bumper Ledge, so that isn't going to be the progression answer. It's more and more looking like Misery Mire is, in fact, a required double dip here, with the rest of the items probably hiding behind that hookshot. And Zeitnix looks like they're taking a little think of things here to see just exactly what they could be missing at this point.
We're probably thinking about going over to Catfish, because I believe Kynup was the one who did Catfish earlier. And this is a weird seed, because you have that information, and the information is persuading you to not go to a certain location.
But apparently it's not too much or enough of a persuasion to stay away from there. Zeitnix reevaluating, deciding to head right on back over. This is definitely good. Gonna hop into Misery Mire here. Should be able to find that hookshot. That'll give them access up towards the mountain, meaning that the boots were what was logically required to be able to jump in here. The only, once again, disadvantage is that Zeitnix did not grab that cane off of Zora Ledge when they were there earlier via some Ancilla deletion, whereas Kynup did.
I think something we do need to mention now is that if this seed keeps on going the way that it does, it could be very difficult for Kynup to actually find a sword. Because there's only one sword left. Pyramid Fairy is a long time investment right now. And then we have Waterfall Fairy, which Kynup may never return back to. And what you have as a result is, if you don't find a final sword, you have to go on a sword jump, sword hunt at the end. And that could take away some precious time when it's time for Ganon's Tower.
Ending up sword hunts never feel great. Kind of going back in, not finding the other item yet. I believe that means it is hiding in the cutscene chest, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the cutscene chest was a small key. It's actually hiding over on the east side. It's either in the big chest or in that lone chest that is kind of weird located. I don't know what it's called.
The other out-of-the-way location.
The other dumb chest in Mire.
At least that one's not as painful to check. So that one is, of course, you can understand why Kynup is going right on back in for it here.
There's probably something big up on the mountain. There's just so many locations there, and like, if there's nothing on the mountain, I'll be very confused.
What if there's literally nothing on the mountain, but you have the flippers sitting in Hera basement? Or you could say in Hera big chest, and both of our runners decide to do the Hera pot and not go and grab the big key that's sitting in the basement. That could there's a whole slew of things that the sea could still throw our way yet.
I mean, we are over an hour in, and they still need both rods. They need flippers. They may need a medallion. So Kynup is doing Pyramid Fairy?
Looks to be where they are headed. This could actually be a good thing. This will get Kynup another sword, just preventing that sword hunt later on. So it might seem like a little bit of a time waste, but like you said, since we do know where two of our, or I should say, since we have seen 3 of our 4 sword locations, this actually might come in handy, preventing that sword hunt later down the seed, or even from a post Ganon's Tower climb sword hunt.
I just find it a bit weird that you're doing this now, considering you delayed your Mire to do your desert, and now you're doing this when you have the entire mountain open to you. There's definitely some orders that in how Kynup prioritizing locations that are different from the norm. Let's just say it like that.
I'm probably remembering that we had access to this early on. So let's go check it and see if there's something hiding there. That is our progression. Doesn't fortunately get the Master Sword. We are up the mountain. We get flippers. We get a mushroom. And we got another safety in the Cane of Burnout.
Yeah, I don't think it's very surprising to see the flippers being picked up there. Now you can go get that fire rod, but we have an ice rod hunt.
Yep, we are down to hunting for that ice rod and potentially a medallion at this point. And Zeitnix heading right on over to Tower of Hera, another fully completable dungeon.
Zeitnix wants to check the tablet first.
Ether Tablet giving us 3 bombs. And we continue on into the Tower of Hera. Kynup is going to be right behind here very shortly, about to grab their slew of hiding progression items, or at least one of them leading towards progression. The other one, the mushroom, we've yet to see, depending on what that turn is. And there, of course, is the big key in the atrium of Tower of Hera.
So Meyer is now fully beatable in logic. Hera is fully beatable. So that leaves Turtle Rock, which we need Ice Rod for. We may need a medallion for it. And we also do need that mirror to go get the Fire Rod. You know, that's so interesting that you get the mirror right now, like that, and you put the entire pedestal in logic, and simultaneously does turn it in fact into an Ice Rod hunt, because, of course.
Because, of course, this is Randomizer, and Ice Rod can be wherever it darn well pleases, including the very last chest on Laser Bridge right before Trinax.
Well, now the entire seed is open to you, and Ice Rod could be anywhere. Great. Lovely. I don't even know where you start here, honestly. Do you just go into Pendant Swamp? Do you check the pedestal first to get that information? If you can get into Turtle Rock, do you just go in? You probably just go in. Not if you're a Zeitnix, because Zeitnix does need to pick up the cane first.
Definitely a very good question of where do we go now with the whole map essentially at our disposal. But right there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Zeitnix making quick work of a Moldor. Down it goes. That is crystal number 5 over on Zeitnix's side.
Oh boy. Like, this seed has mostly been linear throughout the beginning up until now, because now it's just whatever. Like, go somewhere and hope you get the Ice Rod.
May the odds ever be in your favor, and may you choose the correct location to check before your opponent. We got that Ice Rod hunt on our hands here for the remainder of this seed.
Now, you would actually like to do Skullwoods, mirror over and check pedestal, but you've already been to Skullwoods. Or weren't both items in the back?
I believe one item is in the back. I think we found a piece of heart or something relating, or a heart container or something up the front. But Skullwoods is also our green pendant, so that does give us access to one more check after clearing it out.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, at this point, you just have awful choices. There are no good choices you can make here. You just make a choice and hope that it's there. And if it isn't, well, you hope that your opponent made the same choice.
Pretty much throw your dart at the dartboard, take your shot, and hope it's something that the item that you're looking for. Zeitnix taking a look through Super Bunny Cave, and not what they're looking for. We're going to take this down into Hookshot Cave now. But first, survey says for Turtle Rock, we got Quake. We got all the medallions we need. This is, in fact, an Ice Rod hunt.
Oh boy. And you know, it could just be right inside of Turtle Rock. But the problem is still that you need to leave the mountain to go get your Fire Rod and then re-climb the mountain. Oh, never mind. We got
Or it's hiding under the doormat. We got a no mode for Zeitnix. That was an Ice Rod hiding in Hookshot Cave. That's pretty handy if you ask me.
Well, we had to wait an hour to get access to the mountain, but now we got all the items. But this means that Zeitnix will have a sword edge for the rest of the match. There's essentially no way that Kynup is gonna go to Waterfall Ferry and pick up that sword.
Best Kynup could hope for at this point is the sword either hiding along the way in one of the turtle rock chests that you need to open, grab that big key, or something in Ganon's tower to get them to that tempered sword. But even on Master Sword, it's not like Ganon is going to be too entirely difficult with those silvers in tow, so at least have that one waiting for us. And here it is on Zeitnix's side, a quick mirror about to grab that fire rod. They have one more location now they need to visit before they are officially in go mode.
This is such a silly ending to the seed. And kind of predictable.
Very linear, one item to the next, you can't really check anything else, and then, oh, let's go up the mountain, let's open it all up, and, oh, Ice Rod Hunt, okay.
Then let's backtrack and get our last two items, or one if we're Kynup, and yeah, then we're in go mode.
At the very least, the Ice Rod wasn't hiding too far away. It was just sitting right up there on top of the mountain for you, so if you decided to clear the whole thing while you're up there, it really didn't throw you for too much of a loop, fortunately.
Kynup definitely has the edge in terms of progression with Meyer already finished. It's just a matter of how much time Zeitnix can make up in execution and with the sword advantage.
And there it is at 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 50-some odd seconds. That is your go mode for Zeitnix. They just got a mountain climb and a turtle rock separating themselves here, as well as Misery Mire. Where are we going first? Answer is Misery Mire.
You start with this so you don't have to reclimb the mountain again later. That takes a long time.
I believe it was 3 minutes or so, give or take. I heard somebody say at one point in time. Definitely a good chunk of change that you don't really want to waste if you don't have to.
I mean, this is definitely a race. It may seem like Zeitnix is behind here a full dungeon, but this is a quick dungeon, and the weapon advantage can be quite substantial, especially on Ganon later. But if we do find that last sword, ooh, it's gonna take a lot for Zeitnix to take on this one.
There you have it over on Kynup's side. 1 hour, 16 minutes, and some odd change in. Kynup grabbing their fire rod, and that is their go mode. On their side, however, just have the good old turtle rock play between themselves and a Ganon's tower climb.
And Kynup unfortunately getting blocked there by a dead rock, losing some valuable time.
Every precious moment matters here at this point. Not really knowing where your opponent is. Don't know if they decided to grab that cane early on like you did with sequence break, or if they've cleared Mire, or where they could exactly be at. I know for a fact that one here racing a seed, 1 versus 1. Doesn't matter if you god routed or not, you usually always feel behind.
Very nice spooky here from Zeitnix. One of them did take sentences. One of them did take that early death in Thieves Town. I can't remember who it was.
I believe that was Zeitnix that did take our early Thieves Town death and have to recover some ground.
And this would have been, in general, a fine seed to not get that cane, as to speak. But the problem is that, logically, you needed this double dip into Mire, and Kynup skipping that you see how much time that's saved.
The whole entire mountain climb, and gonna be a couple rooms deep here by the time Zeitnix does make their way to Death Mountain here via flute. Kynup opting to go off to the right-hand side here. The crystal roller rooms looks to be. We're checking our lone chest off to the left.
Come on, cabbages. It's Death Mountain for a reason.
Nothing playing nice for either of our runners. They tried to make their way up there. Cabbages on Zeitnix's side, Deadrock's and Kynup's side. Opening up those first couple of chests there. No big key. Opting to go with the mirror to head back to the front to go ahead and check out our other chest here before making our way into the back.
And this is just all execution at this point.
If we're down to execution, we're down to muscle memory. We definitely do have a race on our hands. It is fairly close. Zeitnix does have some ground to make up, but they do have a sword advantage. We'll see if that does come into play here. So we'll make our way through Turtle Rock.
They're still only on green mail, so these chain jumps actually hit really hard, despite their hard count.
And the one room in the game where chain chomps do make their appearance from the world of Mario, and for whatever reason, they of course do literally like taking a bite out of your health.
And imagine being in the rooms for Link to the West Coast and Magic Lamp while watching this race just coming down to the wire. How did that fire rush shot miss?
First one missed. Second one, though, did connect and hit its mark. Kind of continuing on, and that is a vanilla big key. Zeitnix need to be careful here, down to 2 hearts.
As what I didn't mention, they're still on green mail, so enemies do hurt, despite their hard count. Could have used the hook shot there to try and copy a hard Zeitnix, please. A very nice chain jump RNG though. Much faster than Kynup. Just a few more rooms to go. Oh, well, that's a big find. So the difference between tempered and golden sword is far from as substantial as the difference between master and tempered. It's still a very close race, but it's definitely more so in Kynup's favor now.
Definitely, like I said earlier, opening up a few chests along your way for Kynup and essentially hoping to find either another sword or some other safeties. And lo and behold, what do? They find themselves their tempered sword. That is definitely going to be definitely a welcome find at this point for someone who is dealing with a fighter's sword for a good majority of this seed.
That speeds up so many fights for Kynup. And for Zeitnix, like 2-3 seconds or something.
Yep, that damage difference between Massive Sword to Tempered is quite substantial. Definitely more noticeable than Tempered to the Gold Sword, that's for sure.
Still, you have that GT route that's coming up.
Yep, we still do have plenty of match left. This one could definitely come down to Ganon's Tower execution, but hold the phone on that one. Kynup is into their Trinex fight here. Couple slashes to the firehead, down it goes. One fire rod hit to the ice head, a few more slashes over here. And there we go, a nice 2-cycle on Kynup's side. 2 heads down, 1 to go. Spin, a slash, couple slashes, and there you go. Down goes Trinex. That'll be crystal number 7 for Kynup. And we're heading right on over to Ganon's Tower, which means we do have ourselves a little game here that we do like to play. We have 22 locations in Ganon's Tower where that big key can be hiding. Get your guesses in chat, 1 through 22, because as soon as Kynup does enter Ganon's Tower, we will be closing the guesses. So hot and fast and furious here. And do also note that even if Zeitnix does end up in Ganon's Tower here while Kynup is still looking for the key, we're still going to be going off of Kynup's routing, since they'll be the first one in the tower.
Zeitnix takes the safety back entrance there and ends up losing some valuable time. It is the safer play to do, but is that really time that you can invest right now?
Alright, as Kynup has entered Ganon's Tower, we are stopping the game. 31 points to the winner. And Kynup starting off over on the right hope room. We get 1 small key, 100 rupees. Now it looks like we're going to mirror and head off to the left as Zeitnix enters their fight with Trinex going for the back. We could see ourselves not quite grabbing it there. I was going to say we could have possibly seen the 0 cycle, but getting a 1 cycle nonetheless.
It'll be interesting to see how Kynup is going to continue this after the Stalfos room, because this looks like the old standard way of routing GT, instead of just going full right.
3 small key, 420 rupees, 5 are 3 bombs, and 6 is a medallion worth of bombs. Kynup heading off to the right side now.
This is an interesting take, considering right side has a small key, so you could have just gone straight right. It's a little bit reminiscent of Pink Kitty Rose's Ganon's Tower routing back from 2018. So I do believe this is what she did in a lot of those races. But I believe if right side did have a small key, she would just go right instead of doing what happened here. But whatever, it's GT routing.
Pretty much all that matters is you find that key. 8 is going to be 20 rupees. 5 rupees, I mean 9 blue mail. 10 some rupees and 11. That is going to be our big key today.
Zeitnix. Oh, that's so unfortunate for Zeitnix.
It's like Dazed Cloud of the winner of the big key guessing game today, scoring with 31 points. That's Dazed Cloud.
You can use those points for nothing. But hey, they're points.
Bragging points on the leaderboard.
And Zeitnix is going with the true old school route with the 2 chests on the right and then going full left. Unfortunately, that probably seals the fate of this race today.
Yep, Knup's routing, although seemingly a little different from what we normally see, ended up actually working out, finding that big key. Zeitnix, unfortunately, going to the left, is not going to find it. Knup's making their way through the gauntlet. A whole bunch of treadmills, some BMOs, some red Stalfos, spikes, some ice, everything that you do not want in the same room together, just happen to be thrown in there. Make a nice work through it as we do continue on up our Ganon's Tower climb.
I mean, Ganon built the tower for a reason, I guess. Just to put enemies there.
Definitely not a friendly tower, not a friendly climb. Kynup taking the nice little anti-fairy refill right there. Before continuing on into their Land Mode 2 fight. Not quite getting it with the first silver arrow hit or the second. There we go. Getting 2 of them the second time through. 1 more left, and there you go. Land Mode 2 is down, and now on to some of the more satisfying rooms, if I do say so myself, in the entire game.
You mean put cane block on ground, push button, enemies die.
Precisely, making quick work of a whole bunch of wizarobes that can otherwise be not too much fun to deal with.
No. Zeitnix gonna end up killing Ice Armors here as well. That's what happens when you take this route. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's just how GT works.
Yep, and unfortunately today this is the route and the way that just unfortunately isn't going to work. It's still costing Zeitnix a little more time. Checking all these other locations that kind of just did not bother going through. There goes Zeitnix, not finding anything, mirroring back to the front, heading back down to the right. They're just a few short moments away from grabbing that big key. However, Kynup is right almost near the end of their Ganon's Tower climb here.
Yeah, it's gonna take something like, I don't know how many Moldorm Falls or Agadeths. Well, an Agadeth would actually be pretty big. What a quadrant.
Yeah.
That's kind of what needs to happen here.
Something big. Of course, this isn't out of the realm of possibility of things happening. But down goes Moldorm 2, checking the chest for good measure, 20 rupees. All Kynup has left is a little bit of an egonometry test before dropping into the big pig.
Hey, vanilla. Woohoo. Ice physics. Fun.
Well, at the very least, Zeitnix is going to have themselves a red mail advantage. Not really sure that's what they'd prefer here at this point, though.
Zeitnix got the big key and now has to do the climb, but this is a lead and a half.
Two so far, not playing too nice. We're getting a couple hits in on that setup. And there we have it. Final hit put into Aghanim. Spirit again and ascends. We got a short flight to the Pyramid of Power. And a drop on in with the big pig.
For one last encounter.
So what do we have left here for us today? Ganon essentially issuing a challenge to everybody at this point.
Unfortunately, characters in this video game cannot hum in the first place, so why Ganon knows about humming, I don't know.
That in and of itself is a mystery, that is for sure. On to phase 2 already for Kynup. Making our way, dancing through some fire bats. For the two phaser here with some sword slashes. Playing it safe. I like that decision here, dodging some more fire bats, and it looks like we are already into phase 3. If Ganon decides to stop teleporting anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a bit random when it comes to Ganon and his lovely teleportations, but Kynup's just doing the fight by the book. Really isn't all that much more to add.
Yeah, not much more that you could ask for her at that point. That is 4 hits. Down goes both sides. We do have silver arrows. We're going to get 1 hit in here. Do get the torch glitch. We got 3 hits left on Kynup's side. Ooh, that one going right through the head.
Yeah, the head doesn't have a hitbox because reasons.
Unfortunately, no boom headshot here today. That's hit number 3. 1 more to go. Ooh, dodge fire bat first.
There we go.
And there it is. Down goes Ganon with the 4 hits. All that we have left for Kynup is a 1x3 bridge. Sipping themselves from victory in this first week matchup and across. And there you have it. Kynup taking home the victory in this first matchup, or this week 1 matchup, I should say. Official SRL time, 1 hour, 35 minutes, 58 seconds. Get your GGs in chat for Kynup.
Well, we do get to see this tie-up here between these teams in the first week, so neither of them gonna be completely left in the dark moving into week 2, and we are now joined by our winner today, Kynup. Congratulations.
Thank you. That was rough.
How are you feeling right now?
Better. I was stressed out all the race long, and my execution was so bad, and I was feeling like behind because that moon pearl in the beginning. I was looking for my moon pearl, and indeed I had it. So that's why I clear the light word first, and then I check my inventory, and oh, surprise! There is a moon pearl.
Oh, well, that explains that. Yes. What do you think in general about the seed?
Well, the logic of the seed was awful, I think, because to go in Maya, to get that hook shot, to get in the to get in the flipper in the mountain, it was pretty rushed, but I think that I managed to do the fake flipper, the Ansia fake flipper on the first time, and that saves me a lot of time, I think.
That was one of the big differences here. You did do that Ancilla deletion to grab your red cane there the first time visiting Zora. Zeitnix didn't. So for Misery Mire for them was in fact a double dip.
Yeah. And for that, I felt a bit behind because I didn't have to double dip Misery Mire, even if I check for the both items. But my play at the beginning with the Moon Pearl, so I wasn't sure, and I played safe. I didn't want to die or something like that. That's why I took potions. I buy potions. My hands was shaking because I was all stressed out, and I think it's my execution wasn't so good today, but at least I won, so I'm happy.
Yep, all that aside, you can definitely take yourself a well-earned deep breath now. You did end up taking home the victory there, giving your team Medj Glemp Oil the 3 points here coming out of week 1. And right there, looking over on Zeitnix side, we did miss the torch glitch, but we are into their phase 4. 2 hits down, 3 hits, getting the double. Nice way to finish out the fight there for Zeitnix. 1 by 3 bridges, all that's separating them from the Triforce. Get your GGs in chat for Zeitnix, ladies and gentlemen. They are crossing their bridge and hitting their finish line. Official SRL time today of 1 hour, 39 minutes, 38 seconds. Oh, well done by Zeitnix. So take us through the ending part of that seed there as well. And on your mind there, Kynup, you pretty much didn't have anything open to yourself. Then all of a sudden the whole world gets opened. It's all of a sudden Ice Rod Hunt, and before you go down the mountain, you thankfully find it. What was kind of going through your mind through that whole ordeal there?
Yeah. Well, it was a close race finally.
Definitely did come down to execution and Ganon's tower routing too. That also was another big difference. Zeitnix did end up going full left. So ended up wasting, or spending, I should say, a few extra seconds comparison to yourself making those checks. We are joined here too today by our second place finisher, Zeitnix. GG.
Thank you. GG.
GG Zeitnix. It was an awful not an awful one, but the logic was terrible in that seed.
Yeah. That hook shot.
So kind of take us through the seed here on from your perspective there, Zeitnix. What'd you think of that one?
Well, when I got to Zora, I knew where the cane was, obviously, right? But I don't have that Ancilla deletion thing down yet, so I'm pretty sure that bit me. And then also, I got to Dark World, and then I decided I would do the Smith chain in the worst way possible. I don't know what I was thinking when I should have probably just went straight to pod. But other than that, really the big problem was hookshot and Mire for me.
Yeah, that one ended up not playing nice there. Basically forcing, or the logic of wanting you to do that double dip. If you didn't know that Ancilla deletion, that ended up coming in fairly big here in this seed, unfortunately.
And when it was there, and I was wishing I had practiced that. I was, but it is what it is, and it was fun. So thank you.
That's the big part. As long as you had fun. This, of course, is week 1. Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 2. Let's go ahead and start this one out with you, Kynup. Anything specifically you're looking forward to as far as either the league in general or any weeks, different modes coming up that you're looking forward to as we continue on here?
Well, I'm afraid by the cross key week, but we will see. I will practice to do that week, and let's see. Otherwise, no, I think it's good.
And how about for yourself, Zeitnix? Anything you're looking forward to, any specific modes or anything like that in general as the season starts getting to the meat and potatoes here?
Honestly, next week's going to be my favorite week, I believe, Ambrosia. So I'm already logged to play that race next Saturday. So
there you go. For those of you watching that don't know, Ambrosia, a different kind of a game mode. It is a standard opening. Uncle does spoil the boots location for you, and each dungeon boss is assured to hold a unique item for you, or a unique item there. So if you do find two early on, say in Eastern Palace, the next one you can guarantee will be sitting on the boss. That then being said, Zeitnix or Kynup, either of you have any final thoughts here for us today?
I would like to thank all the viewers, all the commentators and trackers, and all the staff organization of that league. It's amazing that we can organize something like that. And I'm really enjoyed to be a part of it.
here. I second that.
All right, and if you want to get yourself a fill of more Link to the Past Randomizer, we got another match coming up here for you today at 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on Speed Gaming 3. That'll be Old Swagga Jackson, represented by Mark Nificent, against the Cool Rush Gamers, represented by Cool Papa Bell. Old Swagga Jackson looks to have taken the first match in that setup, has the 3-0 advantage early on in week 1. Marjevich, anything else for us here as we wrap things up today?
I mean, to make sure that you do get to watch all these matches, you need to make sure that you follow all of the Speed Gaming channels and also the ALTTPR League channels as well. There's also a YouTube channel, I've heard. You can subscribe to that as well, because in due time, all VODs will be uploaded to YouTube as well.
That's correct. Be sure to keep yourself up to date with all the action, all the Speed Gaming channels 1 through 6, as well as the ALTTPR League channel. While you're following a whole bunch of channels, be sure to give both of our runners today a whole lot of love on their channels and give them as much support as possible. They put on quite the show for us today. And huge shout outs to the one behind the scenes, pushing the buttons for us today, Sigma 6, doing the difficult job to make ours a whole lot easier. With all that in mind, we are just getting underway in Season 2 of the Link to the Past Randomizer League. This is Week 1. Like I said, we do have one more matchup coming up today in a few hours at 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to keep your eyes over on Speed Gaming 3 for that one when that goes live. Other than that, I think that's going to do it for us today. So on behalf of everyone over at Speed Gaming, I'm Spy Weaver. I was joined today by Marjevich. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day.
Go feed your dog.